In today's video, I'm going to mainly talk about weapons in Baldur's Gate 3 to hopefully help some of you better optimize your characters and your soon-to-be characters in combat. This is going to be a beginner's friendly guide, but I'm going to also sprinkle in some more advanced tips, so be sure to stick around. As always, chapter markers below. But before we jump into it, I do have a video sponsor today, and that is the browser Opera GX. Links to download will be below. Opera GX is a web browser designed and built for gamers, and also Discord, Twitch, Messenger, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp, VK, Telegram, even Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube Music users, and more. As you can see on the sidebar, I am logged into Discord, Messenger, and Twitter, and with a quick click, I am in. Also note that if you allow, notifications will pop up over their respective icons. Perhaps even cooler is the GX Player, which allows you to keep your favorite streaming services all in one place, and if you stream video or audio on a regular tab, the GX Player will auto-pause and then auto-resume when that particular tab is finished. More specific to gaming itself, we have the GX Control Panel, which allows players to limit the CPU or RAM that they're willing to let their browser use. And this can be especially useful if you like gaming while having multiple tabs open. There's also the Network Limiter, which limits the network bandwidth that the Opera GX browser will pull, which can then of course increase performance while online gaming and streaming. How you set these settings is completely up to you. Also note that Opera GX now has a mobile version called GX Mobile, which can be connected to the desktop version. So if you want a really cool browser that does a ton of stuff, including giving you lots of visual customization options, I'm leaving a link below in the video description and pinned comment. It's completely free to download Opera GX. You might as well give it a try. Back to the video. The first thing, and perhaps the most important thing to understand, is weapon proficiency. If you are proficient in a weapon, you'll get a proficiency bonus added to your attack rolls when attacking with that weapon. In early access, this bonus is a +2, but that +2 will increase to a +3 at level 5, +4 at level 9, 5 at 13, and 6 at 17, but we currently don't know what max level will be in Baldur's Gate 3. So when you attack with a weapon that you're proficient with, the game rolls a d20 for your attack roll, and then it adds your strength or dexterity modifier, and then also your proficiency bonus if you are proficient with that weapon. After the game does the behind-the-scenes math, the final number has to be equal to or greater than the enemy's armor class number for your attack to actually hit its target. And if it does hit, then a damage roll is conducted separately, but the damage roll does not take into account weapon proficiency. There are several ways to grant your character proficiency in certain weapon types. Your class choice is what typically grants the most weapon proficiencies, but so can your race, subclass, and feats. If we take a look at the Warlock class, you can see that we get simple weapon proficiency, while the Fighter gets both simple and martial weapon proficiency. And then some other classes are more specific with individual weapon types, such as the Sorcerer, which only gets dagger, quarterstaff, and light crossbow proficiency. Simple weapons are weapons that are commonly found in the hands of commoners, such as daggers, quarterstaffs, maces, clubs, sickles, hand axes, spears, javelins, and light hammers. And for ranged simple weapons, we have short bows and light crossbows. Martial weapons are weapons that typically require more specialized training to use effectively, and these weapons include battle axes, great axes, short swords, long swords, great swords, scimitars, rapiers, glaives, warhammers, halberds, morning stars, and pikes. And for ranged martial weapons, we have hand crossbows, longbows, and heavy crossbows. So if you see a class that has simple and martial weapon proficiency, like the Fighter and the Ranger, they can use any weapon in the game and still receive that proficiency bonus on their attack rolls. If you're playing a class that doesn't have proficiency in a weapon type that you really want to use, you might want to look to other things, such as your subclass and racial choice, and possibly even feats to obtain that particular weapon proficiency. For example, many players will play a class that doesn't get proficiency in short or long bows, and they will choose to play as a high elf or wood elf to get that proficiency right away at level 1. I should also mention that shields are a category of their own, so if you want to use a shield, you'll want to play a class that gives shield proficiency, or look to feats such as the moderately armored feat. Shields give all players a +2 to their armor class when equipped, but if you're not proficient in shields, you can no longer cast spells or cantrips at all, and you'll also have disadvantage on your attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks. This also applies to wearing armor that you are not proficient with. On top of the importance of being proficient with the weapon that you're using, you'll also want to use a weapon that complements your strength or dexterity modifier. All melee weapons in the game will use your strength modifier, which will be added to your attack and damage rolls. Proficiency bonus was only added to attack rolls to make you more likely to land your attacks, but your strength modifier is both attack and damage rolls. The catch here is that some weapons, such as daggers, scimitars, rapiers, and short swords, have the finesse property tied to them. Finesse weapons will actually use your strength or dexterity modifier, depending on which one is higher for that character. So if you dump strength, but you have a decent dexterity score, you probably don't want to be using a greatsword, even if you are proficient with greatswords, because the greatsword is not a finesse weapon, which means that your -1 or 0 strength modifier will be the number that is added to your attack and damage rolls. You would instead want to use a finesse weapon, such as a scimitar or rapier, which will add your much higher dexterity modifier to the attack and damage rolls. When using ranged weapons, and this includes crossbows, your dexterity modifier will always be added to your attack and damage rolls. There are no ranged weapons that allow you to use strength. However, if throwing weapons becomes a thing in Baldur's Gate 3, that will likely scale off of your strength or dex if you're throwing a weapon with the finesse property. In early access, as of now, all ranged weapons, except hand crossbows, seem to have the same range, 60 feet. So the ranged weapon that you use as of now will likely come down to what has the best damage potential that you are also proficient in. I'm assuming at some point Larian will add the correct ranges to each ranged weapon type, but I'm not entirely sure. The best ranged weapon in early access is the heavy crossbow, and if you want to optimize your ranged combat and you're proficient with heavy crossbows, this is the highest damage potential that you can get. Heavy crossbows deal 1d10 damage, while the second highest damage ranged weapons are longbows and light crossbows, which deal 1d8 damage. It's important to keep in mind though that once we can reach level 5, things will change a bit here. At level 5, the martial classes get a feature called Extra Attack, which means they can use their attack action twice in one turn. Since crossbows require ammunition loading time, they do not allow players to make use of Extra Attack unless you take the Crossbow Expert feat, which is not in the game currently. Bow users, however, are all descendants of Legolas, so they can attack twice in one turn. In conclusion, for early access with its current max level of 4, light and heavy crossbows are better picks over short and long bows respectively. Now I can't leave out hand crossbows though, which only deal 1d6 damage, but the catch is that they can be dual wielded, which means you get 1d6 with both crossbows if their shots land. This is actually a higher damage potential than the basic heavy crossbow at 1d10, but you also have to give up your bonus action. I don't see many players trying dual hand crossbows though, and that's probably because they're much harder to come across, and also many players just don't even know that they can be dual wielded. The way that it is currently in early access, any character can dual wield hand crossbows, but like all other weapons, you'll benefit much more by being proficient with this weapon type. If you toggle on the dual wield toggle when you attack, both hand crossbows will take a shot using up your action and bonus action. If you turn this toggle off, you'll have to manually click an icon for your offhand to take a shot. Your dexterity modifier will be added to the attack and damage roll of your main hand crossbow, and only the attack roll of your offhand. Now let's talk about 4 more important weapon properties that you should understand for melee weapons, starting with the versatile property. Weapons with the versatile property are weapons that can be wielded with 1 or 2 hands. The choice is yours. Most versatile weapons will deal 1d8 one-handed damage and 1d10 when wielded as a two-handed weapon. In Baldur's Gate 3, if you're wielding a versatile weapon with nothing in your offhand, it will automatically use it as a two-handed weapon, but if you put a shield or possibly even another weapon in your offhand, it will change to be one-handed. Some examples of versatile weapons include battle axes, longswords, spears, and battle hammers. Keep in mind that some versatile weapons, like the spear, specifically say that they cannot be dual-wielded. And that of course brings us to the topic of dual-wielding, or two-weapon fighting as D&D says it. If you want to dual-wield weapons, the weapons must have the light property, unless you pick up the dual-wielder feat at level 4, and I'll talk about that in a second. When you dual-wield light weapons, you can use your action for your main hand attack, and then your bonus action for your offhand attack. And note that there is a toggle, like we talked about with the hand crossbows, to make the offhand attack automatically go off with the main hand if you want it to. If you want to dual wield weapons without the light property, and these weapons oftentimes give you higher damage potential than light weapons, you have to pick up the dual wielder feat at level 4, and this will allow you to use 2 weapon fighting with weapons that don't have the light property. Now you still can't dual wield the heavy weapons that are 2-handed weapons, but you can start to dual wield with many of the versatile weapons that we talked about earlier, such as battle axes and longswords. If you want to take this feat with a character that is primarily dexterity based, your best bet is using the finesse weapon of the rapier, as it gives you the highest damage potential of 1d8. I should also note here that your offhand attack's ability modifier will not be added to the damage roll of your offhand attack unless your modifier is negative. Taking the fighting style 2-weapon fighting as a fighter or ranger is one way that you can overcome this and have the game take into account your ability modifier for your offhand attack. And lastly, this is a quick one, weapon reach. If you notice, each melee weapon has a range, which is the weapon's reach, and most melee weapons have a reach of 5 feet. This means that you have to stand close enough to your enemy to where if you wanted to move away, you would have to disengage or the enemy would get an opportunity attack on you. Some weapons, however, such as halberds, glaives, and pikes, have a longer reach than 5 feet, and this allows you to stand further away from your targets and still deal damage to them. This not only allows you to move more freely without taking opportunity attacks, but it also forces some enemies to try to move close to you. And this can be really good with multiple characters on the front lines, because you can have your tank in the enemy's faces while your character that has good weapon reach can stand back a little outside of most enemies' melee range. And that'll be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll leave a link to the community Discord server below in the pinned comment in the video description. And as always, when you purchase your games, if you like using the GOG store, consider clicking on my affiliate link below before you do it. So when you purchase your games, you also help support the channel. I'll catch you guys on the next one.